Rose for Emily is the fifth play in the Odyssean Oracle plays. I don't think this is your greatest play, and I don't know necessarily where I would rank it, but I would say it's probably the most entertaining of your plays that I've read thus far.
Yeah, I could imagine this being a comedy hit.
The character, you told me that Emmy is sort of the dominant character in this, but George Clemenza is also quite entertaining in this too. I mean, the way that they play off each other and his endless idiocy and her nastiness coupled together. Also, I do from the very beginning and from the beginning you have this nebulous sound that sounds like roars, roars, roars.
Yeah.
That you depict as Godzilla, and through this entire play, after you get to know Emmy, you can only think of this fat woman kind of raging through New York City as the giant Godzilla-like creature destroying everything in her wake.
And she was exactly like the real Emmy Clemenza, who's dead 30 years. Her real name was Angie Clementi, and her husband's name was George Clementi, so I changed it to George Clemenza. She was that way. I mean, she was fat. She had legs like oaks. She often wore these black dresses with white nurse stockings, and she might have been a nurse in her before she retired. She was like 25, 30 years older than George. She was in her mid-60s. He was in his late 30s or so, 40-ish. She would... I think they had met through a church thing. He was an alcoholic. She helped him recover. She used to literally hit people with her pocketbook. She'd hit him. I mean, it was like the Three Stooges. She'd come for her paycheck. I have a couple of times where she's going to get his paycheck, and she'd abuse people. As in the play, she spat on one girl. She'd call other people names. She'd yell at the managers. And then one time there was the scene that I do recall off stage, where George apparently was drunk and it was icy, and he actually, when she hit him with the thing, he bopped her in the nose. She fell on her ass and slid like 20 feet through the parking lot. But if anything, I underwrote both of them. The George character, there was the time when he was thrown into a watermelon bin in diapers because he was so drunk. That actually happened, and his photos were pasted all around the store. And
Well, we'll get into the more humorous aspects of it in a second here, but I wanted to ask you a technical question about this. Do you think that, I wouldn't argue this myself, but I wanted to ask you and why as well. But do you think that these two characters, Emmy and George, do you think that they tease stereotypical portrayals, or do you think they're stereotypes in a sense, or just archetypes?
I don't think they're either. They're so bizarre. It's hard. I mean, you could say that they're grotesques, the way that a lot of Southern Gothic fiction has these grotesque characters. You could say they are grotesque, but I don't think you would ever find anyone like Emmy Clemenza. I mean, yes, there are brusque, arrogant women, but I mean, the things that she would do, like she would make sexual comments to me, but not in a thing. She'd like, oh, if I was 30 years younger, I'd just ride you like a stallion, And she hated everyone, but she loved me. And I mean, she thought I was the bee's knees. She used phrases like that. She had this crazy Christian friend that she had.
Zelda.
Yeah. I don't know what the name was in real life, but one of the things I do is
But the funniest thing about Zelda is 90% of her dialogue is Bible passages.
Yeah, or Emily Dickinson. So she's not even listening to anyone else. She's just a zombie that's repeating stuff. And, Emmy thinks she's so wise or whatnot,
Emmy's introduction is great, too, where I think she's shopping for groceries, or she's in the takeout line, and she comes upon this lazy-eyed guy.
Yeah.
And everyone else politely sort of pretends not to notice his lazy eye and just go about their business. And she goes straight up to him and says, "What the fuck is wrong with your eyes?"
Well, yeah, but she looks at him, and then she sort of like collapses in horror.
She's offended too that he doesn't cover it up at the end of it. And Danny sort of shines her on by saying, "How dare he? How dare he not cover himself up?"
Yeah, and it
reminded me sort of like the dichotomy between, say, the Archie Bunker character and the Lionel character in All in the Family, between Danny Wagner and Emmy, in that Danny sort of just sardonically plays against her.
He's
full of shit.
Yeah, I mean the New York store. I just mentioned earlier how like I'm going to be starting working back in retail in a few weeks at another store, and the store I worked here for 9 years that had uh, uh, wrongly fired me for their crimes. They there are a few characters out here in Texas. But in New York, Jesus, I mean, I even have another one. This guy Howie, who used to get drunk all day in the parking lot, and uh, and I mean, there was just so many. There was I've got ideas for other plays in the future. Some of the managers. There was this kid that there was this guy who had a robotic voice because he had cancer removed. We called him Robo Schlerm, and so he talked like Stephen Hawking. And then there was this kid. Uh, Ronnie Campbell was his name. We called him Ace, and he used to he couldn't speak. He was mental, and so he'd be like dog way. He'd be like, I, I couldn't even do his voice. And then there was Tourette's Tammy, this woman who would go around call everyone a son of a bitch, you cocksucking son of a bitch, cocksucker, and she'd go around. And then there were like old bag ladies who used to shit in the store, And then there were the people, and then there were the people who would steal, and then there were people like the old dairy manager that I mentioned before, and who gets maybe mentioned here.
Jimmy Lutz.
Yeah, the Lutz. I think I call him John Lutz here, but his real name was Jim Lutz. Uh, but yeah, so yeah, and but the thing is to try to humanize it, because one of the things is, despite how abrasive and how foul mouthed and how insensitive and also racist and whatnot she was, there was a part of me th- that sort of liked this woman, because she didn't
She's
take.
so entertaining.
Yeah, she's entertaining, but she also has her own bizarre form of honesty. She wouldn't, I mean, if she didn't like Puerto Ricans or Jews, she would say, I don't like Puerto Ricans and Jews. She wouldn't pretend. She would just come right out and say, I don't know, if a Chinese guy was shopping there, she'd say, "Hey, Mr. Fong," even if that wasn't his name, or "Hey, Wu, how you doing?" But and so that's the basis of the lazy eye guy thing, is she would see someone with some kind of deformity, and if she wasn't prepared for it, she goes, oh my god, what happened to you? you know
Pamela Romano too gets her ire quite often, where she Pamela seems to sleep with every manager in the store,
yeah, that's
but and Emmy calls her out on this and seems to have a lot of contempt for Pamela and Deke Nardo as well.
yeah. Well, there's the funny thing. One of the scenes, and there are so many times like this where I have Zelda and Emmy, and I guess the League of Decency or whatnot, want people in the store. They want to put up some flyers to come to some picnic or something for the church, and the company had rules that they couldn't. You couldn't favor the Catholics, because then you had to do the Jews and all the Protestant denominations and this one. So he tells Danny, put the sign up and then take it down when they go and whatnot, and uh, that leads to a funny scene, and then there's another scene where Deke, well, Deke has had his fill of Pam, and he sort of passes her off onto the new manager that comes into the store, and then there was a scene, and this really happened, where the new manager's wife came in and wanted to kill. I mean, she was chasing. She wanted to kill Pam, the bookkeeper character. And what happened was the manager got her out the back door as the wife was coming through the front way, and I was there. I They had pricing guns, so I was probably at the front office to get a roll of new price tags and whatnot. And the Emmy character, the real Angie was her name, but the Emmy character was there, and when she'd always call that Pam, "You fucking whore, you slut, give me my check, you slut," because she'd come to get George's paychecks so that he wouldn't blow it on booze. And then when this irate cuckolded wife came in looking to scratch the eyes out of the bookkeeper Pam, uh, when the Emmy this is again really happened. When Emmy heard this, she's like, "That slut went out the back door that way. just 10 seconds ago. And she went off after. I never found out what happened because I only had like 20 minutes to go that day in my shift. But
The other thing you have to realize about Emmy is she seems to be in a constant state of agitation.
yeah.
And when you get to know more about George, perhaps you understand why. But she'll be on a tirade, and then it will lead into another tirade, like George fondling the cream cheese bars. all of a sudden, she comes out of her one tirade and starts chastising George for fondling the cream cheese bars. Also, we have to talk about when Emmy actually dies. In most of your plays, that's where you actually use the pathos of the scene to demonstrate it. But this one is still played up for comedy, where George tells Danny that Emmy died, and then there's this montage, and you have a sense that George is actually happy because he's free of her, and having to be dealt with it. And there's this long montage of her attacking George. Basically, there's a few scenes where she shows a little bit of feeling for George, but it quickly devolves into her attacking him and dissuading his character over and again.
Yeah. Well, and this is one of the things where I want to use like this. Presumably, the actors will record this montage to be used in each thing, and this was the basis of the play. Because when I wanted to do these 6 plays based on the zombie songs, Odyssey and Oracle, from Odyssey and Oracle, A Rose for Emily was originally a William Faulkner short story. It's a mediocre short story. It became this great little pop song. And so to bring it here, I said, well, first of all, I'm going to have to rename the real Angelo or Angie to Emily or Emmy. And the thing that's the most interesting that I remember out of everything was when she died, no one went to her funeral. I mean, I assumed there had been a priest there or something, but George didn't go to his funeral. He got drunk that day and was lying around with the Howie character, just drinking his ass off. And I think, I don't remember, do I have him with Big Al? Big Al from Big Al's Gina makes an appearance.
Yes, there's a few scenes with Big Al in here.
Yeah, and so
I think it's pre-Gina's suicide too.
Yeah, it's a year or so before, and that's one of the things too in the whole meta play aspect. Earlier, when I did exteriors, I had Danny Wagner giving a phone call to his former lover there, which actually chronologically he then would hang up in that play and go back to the first play where he's calling Megan Morrow because he mentions this or whatnot. So you do have these kind of overlaps, and so I wanted to end the play with this kind of touching thing because George seems to be relieved, and then at the end, he smiles at the pickle jar. He's looking at a pickle jar, so you can imagine him holding up a big jar and seeing his sort of grotesque, distended face, looking through pickle juice or something, and he's somewhat bizarrely happy. He more than likely I think, and I could be wrong though, but I think that 2 or 3 years after she died, maybe just a month or 2 before I left the store, I think George might have gotten fired for being drunk. Finally, he was drinking too much. He didn't show up enough, and they finally fired him, even though there was a union. I felt bad about that.
Warned him about that. At the beginnings of this play.
Yeah, and you get I think a good sense of the dynamics of the store. There's the gorgeous girl Luann that all the managers and all the boys want to do, and then there's the girl that she spits on, and we get a sense of these women that work in this small little office being harangued by Emmy. And in a play like this, I try to cut things down. The character of Henry Miller from these Lesser Weathers of Beethoven also has a scene or 2 in here because they were in it. But this is the kind of play that, because Emmy is so large, she has to be center, and I don't need 30 or 40 minor characters running around, even though it would add some realism perhaps. So you find this stuff, you got Big Al, you got Henry, you got Danny Wagner, you got the office crew, you got the Deke Nardo character, and then you have the Howie and his drunken pal. Howie, in fact, has his own sort of little drunken acolyte, just like Emmy has Zelda.
I wanted to speak to you briefly about the use of poems in this play. If you turn to page 15, for instance, you inserted the prostitute, and you mentioned how it's used as ill used in this context, but it was almost as if Emmy was taking the strings away from you,
Taking the what away from me?
taking the strings away from you, and inserting her quote unquote vision of on what she thinks is a Pam with the prostitute.
Huh. I mean that's interesting. I never thought of that, but that's one of the interesting things when you do this like this. You get you get that. Yeah, I don't know what I can really comment on that. I mean, there are one of the things like in the last few plays. I did 27 plays in 26 weeks, and then I took a couple of weeks, did this other play, and now with this changing of jobs and me wanting to release some books online, I might release just one play this coming month in January, or finish one play if I get a chance, maybe two, and I'll be doing it slower, but working on other things with this new job. I may not be able to do as many Dan Schneider video interviews for a while. Um, uh, but but yeah, it's also good because it gives me a way to recharge, because I didn't want to fall into a habit of, say, always using poems or always using music and whatnot. And so the last two or three plays that I had done, I went away from that, and I'm trying to go more into the language of the play and whatnot. And here, yeah, got Emmy and Pat are not exemplars. And so I'm explaining in long live theater. Yeah, and so I use that, and I sort of I don't know if I'd say even make fun, but I sort of burlesque to an extent my use of poems with that, because to Emmy is not a tragic character. She's an inherently comic character. She's a sad character to a certain degree, but you can't really feel that badly for her because she's comic, but she is a rotten person. But she's also a person, and there's when she has a little soliloquy later in the play, we get a sense that as badly as she fucks up her life and as badly as she treats other people, in her own bizarre way, she thinks she's trying. You know, so that's sort of her redemption to a certain degree.